This is generation gaps in coaching. There are currently four different generations: the pre-1946, the silent through 71 years plus, the 1946-1964, the baby boomers, which are 71 to 53 years old, 1965 to 1980, Generation X, 52 to 37 years old, and 1981 to the present, known as the millennials or the Generation Y, which is anything from 36 to lower. Baby boomers and millennials being the most different and difficult to work with, and 25% of human resource departments reporting conflicts between the two generations. Some characteristics of the two. Baby boomers typically take jobs seriously, undertaking tasks without questioning superiors, prefer face to face communication, crave recognition, motivated by goals, promotions, and monetary rewards. They tend to be highly competitive and independent and resistant to change and a tendency to micromanage. Millennials demand meaning in their work as long as team players and accepting diversity. Heavily reliant on technologies because they grew up with iPads, computers, and cell phones. Self-important, they tend to be impatient just because of the necessity of the internet and everything like that, and they tend to be disloyal. Something that help with millennials is having structure. Having a good foundation, home base to refer to. This is a quote from the Marquette women's basketball coach, Terry Mitchell. They have a student athlete advisory committee. Most schools have this, and they had some suggestions for the coaches. Avoid labeling individuals when describing teams. Understand that student athletes have a lot of responsibilities. End of season interviews, an open door policy. They like them to be visible on campus. Attend the SAC meetings with the student athlete advisory committee. Communicate via email or text, referred instead of face to face, and then include student athletes in the decision process. The foundation of methodology. This is the gain experience through playing versus gaining licenses. Coaches used to play at a high level. They taught everyone else. Versus now that you can get licensed, prove an understanding of the game. This caused tension because back in the day, that if you played professional, that usually they were the one to coach because they played at a high level, so you would assume that they would be a good coach as well and know what they're talking about. As we know now, this isn't quite the case, that you can have licenses. For example, I took the D license for soccer, which is under USSF, and then I got graded on the course, and if I did not pass the course, then I had to retake it to prove that you have an understanding of the game and that you can coach the younger generation. The Australian FFA technical director, Han Berger, he recognized that Australia had a broken system of education, and their men's and women's national team kind of proves that now. He was able to convince the AFC to follow Australia their own priority courses rewritten for all levels of the game before they went off Japan, which if you ever watched the two, completely different styles. The older generations have played versus younger generations with licenses. Most older generation now, they're kind of forced to have licenses. So they're bridging the gap by having older coaches teach or take licensed courses. For example, the one who taught my D course, he was in his 50s, I believe, which would be in the baby boomer region, and bridging the gap there, as well as just me taking it and being able to bounce ideas off of them. Most of it is just accepting and embracing the change. The silent coaching versus millennial obviously goes a little bit better, but it's Nancy Anderton, 81 years old, and Josh Clark, 20 years old. There's 61 age difference. Australia's fastest man versus Australia's oldest coach. There being able to be direct, constant link between Australia's greatest era athletics and the athletes taken in the new generation. This worked because they showed respect towards one another. They understood that Josh understood that Nancy was a good coach with all her experience, but Nancy also had to realize that Josh was going to learn a little bit different, take things a little bit different, but he's the new generation of athletes. The Addington family. This is Gary and Matt Addington. Gary stopped coaching, what he said too early, to pursue opportunities in his career. He found revival in his son Matt. to coach the high school level at a basketball team. Um, Upon hiring, Gary on the first game started sitting in the stands he didn't want to get in the way of his son. This only lasted one game before Matt made the change and decided that he wanted his dad on the sideline. Matt runs the show and dad sits back, although a lot, especially his mom, they hear similarities between them both, and both players and coaches will say they base are both in charge because they work together. The D Player Challenge. This is the PGA sponsored. So a PGA student would be typically a millennial, matched with a D player, usually a baby boomer. Students gain the appreciates and learn fun with combined with athletic activities. So the rules behind it, there'll be a scramble match. So the D player shot must be used at least one per hole, whether that's a tee, iron shot, putt, chip on, whatever matters. D player shot must be used from tee on one par 5, one par 4, and one par 3, and they'll typically play 9 holes. Baby boomers typically make up a bunch of professionals. What I mean by that is professors, physicians, executives, retired military, law enforcement, and any other professional atmosphere that you can think of. On event day, students will observe guests on practice range and putting green. During this, they'll offer instruction for short game and putting techniques. Students will have studied the layout of the holes prior, because they'll study all 18 because they won't know what the holes are, what the 9 holes are until the day of the event. Upon completion, students are encouraged to relax with guests at the 19th hole and discuss the round. Students will also complete a professional swing analysis after the event for their guest. And the purpose of this is just to bounce, again, work with each other, except the different ways of coaching. They mentioned having to do with the older ladies is that they learn completely even different than the men. So the students had to work with both to make everything work. Feedback at the end. Millennials had to adjust the baby boomers' way to feedback. Since they're so used to emails and texts and everything over online, they're actually forced to do face-to-face and explain. Learn physical limitations with female golfers, as I mentioned before. This meant take more time communicating, repeating instructions, being more patient, and develop meaningful metaphors for illustrating short game techniques, such as other sports or whatever it might matter. In conclusion, the experiment was used to expose millennials of boomer generation and the other way around, and this is hopefully used to bridge the gap. Thank you for your presentation.